Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Monday, March the 2nd. We're going to cover Monday's 7-game slate, go position by position, just talk about the players that stand out to me the most looking at this slate on Sunday night. I'll give you guys some of my early thoughts, what I'm seeing at each position. We'll talk about DraftKings pricing, we'll hit on some players I like for DraftKings. We'll switch over to Yahoo, we'll talk about some guys I do like over on Yahoo as well. Just before we do get started with the video, as always, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. You can also check out my Patreon content, link down below in the description. I do provide a lot of updated and in-depth thoughts on the slate over on Patreon. I'll have an article posted for the slate. I do write articles Monday through Friday that I post over on Patreon. They're very in-depth, highlighting all my favorite plays at each position, the guys I have the most interest in. I do give updated core plays over on Patreon as well. We have a Discord chat that you can join where we're talking through the slate throughout the day. I'm up in the Discord throughout the day as well, answering questions, trying to help you guys build out your lineup. So if you want to check out the Patreon content, see all that I have to offer over there, you can do so. Link down below. It is the beginning of a new month, so those are usually the best times to sign up for Patreon, just with how they work. They charge you when you sign up, and then they charge you at the first of every month. So you want to sign up at the beginning of the month so that way you do get like the most value out of your money. Also, you can check out my Twitter, link down below. You can give me a follow over there at DFS by Noah. I'm pretty active over on Twitter, trying to stay in touch with you guys. If you ever need to contact me, you can do so on Twitter. So if you want to give me a follow there, I would greatly appreciate that. But let's go ahead and take a look at today's 7-game slate. We'll start off at point guard. We got multiple stud options at the top of this position. James Harden, Trey Young, Luka Doncic, and Russell Westbrook. All 4 stud options we have above 10K. So one of the big injuries we have to watch today is Luka Doncic, and it's really just the Mavs in general. The Mavs are on a back-to-back. They did play Sunday. Luka sat out Sunday, so I assume today he's just going to be questionable. We don't have any updates on him. Since it is the back-to-back for the Mavs, we need to watch the status of Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis lately has been sitting out back-to-backs, and he did play 37 minutes against Minnesota on Sunday. So that could be a big injury as well. We could maybe see Porzingis not play today. The Mavs could potentially be without both Luka and Porzingis, so there could be a lot of value there. We'll talk about some of the value that I do like from that team if those guys were to sit. But just looking at these stud point guard options, I mean, they're so closely priced. James Harden at $10,500 is obviously in play against the Knicks. I mean, I don't expect anyone on the Knicks to be able to slow down James Harden. He's 10.5. He's actually pretty affordable for a guy that, we normally pay 11.2, 11.4, like 11.5 for. He's usually always over 11K. We are getting a really nice discount on Harden. I like the matchup, though, a lot for Trey Young. I think Trey Young gives you a ton of upside in this spot against Memphis. Trey Young's someone I've rostered a lot lately, especially the last 2 slates. He's kind of been disappointing, just 48 and 53 DraftKings points the last 2 games against Brooklyn and Portland, 2 really good matchups. He gets another good matchup today against Memphis. This is going to be probably the most appealing game on the slate to target by far. Right now, this game does have a 239 total. We should expect a ton of points scored in this game. We should expect this game to stay close as well. I love the spot for Trey Young. Both these teams are playing at top 10 they're top 10 teams in pace. The Hawks rank 6th in pace. The Grizzlies rank 7th. So like I said, we should expect a ton of points scored here. Both these teams in terms of defensive rating aren't really that great. I mean, we know the Hawks are a bad defensive team. They rank 28th in defensive rating. The Grizzlies are just sort of middle of the pack. They rank 18th. It's hard for me not to like Trey Young in this spot. He's closely priced to guys like Luka and Harden, so I think that is going to keep his ownership down. I think he's going to come in at very low ownership compared to those guys, which just makes him even more appealing for tournaments. Now, if we somehow get a chance or somehow get like the situation where Luka plays and Porzingis is out, then Luka's going to become my top stud option on the slate by far. This is just a big injury we have to watch. I have no idea if he plays or not. He sat out Sunday. It's a back-to-back. If I had to guess, I would say he most likely plays. He usually plays through injuries. I was kind of surprised to see him sit out on Sunday. At 10.3, I mean, he's a really good option as well. Even in a less than ideal spot against the Bulls have actually been pretty good defensively against guards this season. That has changed a little bit as of late. Now they don't have Chris Dunn. That definitely takes one of their better defenders off the court. When you take one of those guys off the court, I mean, that is going to make their defense a little bit worse. So I'm fine with Luka today. Now, if we get Porzingis out and Luka plays, then yeah, Luka becomes my top stud option by far. Honestly, though, I think I'd probably rather roster Trae Young over him in tournaments, especially if he's going to come in at low ownership. But I really have a good amount of interest in all these stud point guards. I would say Westbrook's probably my least favorite just because I think I'd rather go to Trae and Luka more. I think those guys just give you a little bit more upside. But, I mean, Westbrook's also been playing an incredibly high level as of late. 62-plus Draftkings points in 2 straight games. Getting monster minutes. I mean, 43 minutes last game against Boston. I know that game did go to overtime, but even at the end of regulation, he had still played like 38 minutes. So you're going to get 36, 38 minutes from Westbrook. I really have no problems with any of these guys today. I don't think any of them are out of play. If I had to rank them, though, if Porzingis is out and Luka plays, it would definitely be Luka number 1, Trae 2, Harden 3, and Westbrook 4. If Luka plays and Porzingis plays, then it'd probably be Trae 1, Luka 2, Harden 3, Westbrook 4. But I don't have any problems with any of those guys. CJ McCollum's also someone I like a lot. 9,300 feels like an expensive price tag for CJ McCollum, but the dude has just been playing at such a high level recently. Without Damian Lillard, he's just getting all the usage he can handle, all the minutes he can handle. Last 5 games without Lillard, he's played at least 37 minutes in each game. You look at the shot attempts, I mean, 22, 30, 24, 26, 27. Like, he's taking 25, 30 shots a game, getting a ton of assists. I'm pretty much a threat for a double or a points assist double any night. Like, he could totally go for 30 points and 12 assists, a couple rebounds, get you 50, 55 DK points. It's not the best spot against Orlando. Orlando plays at a pretty slow pace. They're solid defensively. But with all the usage that CJ McCollum's getting right now with Lillard off the floor, I still like him a ton. I think I actually like going to him in kind of the early core plays. We'll have to see how some of these injuries shake out. Maybe I'll make some adjustments, and I'll have those updates posted on Patreon. But for now, CJ McCollum is one of my favorite stud options. I like the savings you get dropping down from him off of guys like Harden and Luka, especially on Yahoo. Like on Yahoo, Luka, Harden, these guys are $55, $54, whereas CJ McCollum's only $41. So you're getting some pretty good savings there. Draftkings, he's about $1,000 cheaper than those guys. I definitely like the savings you get with McCollum. I think he is one of my favorite options at the top of the point guard position. Donovan Mitchell, someone you could go to as well. I like that matchup for him against Cleveland. Cleveland been one of the worst defensive teams against guards this season, so definitely a good spot for Mitchell. Love this matchup for Ja Morant, though. I think he's probably one of my favorite mid-range options at point guard and just one of my favorite overall plays today. After sort of a rough stretch of the season where he was like really disappointing, it was about 3-4 nights in a row he was really disappointing. He's bounced back as of late the last 2 games, going for 41 and 59 Draftkings points against the Kings and the Lakers. Getting big minutes as well, played 35 and 34 minutes in those 2 games. Obviously, this is a fantastic spot against the Hawks. Terrible defensive team, one of the worst defensive teams in the season. Both these teams play at a very fast pace. You expect a ton of points scored here. Really like Ja Morant in the mid-range. I think he's one of my favorite overall plays today. On Yahoo at point guard, he's only $27. He's the same price as Malcolm Brogdon. He's only $1 more than Eric Bledsoe. Like, give me Ja Morant over those guys. I think Ja Morant gives us 45, 50-point upside in the mid-range. Love stacking him with Trae Young. I think if you want to do that 2-man stack, I think if you want to play like 4 or 5 players from this game, I wouldn't have a problem with that, just given the high total. Guys like Morant, Trae Young. We'll talk about Joval, even like Dylan Brooks you can maybe consider. There's other guys you could go to from Atlanta as well. Just such an appealing game. Really like Ja Morant, really like Trae Young. Those are the 2 guys that definitely stand out the most from this game. But then other point guard options, we do know that Darius Garland is out today, so Colin Sexton gets a little bit of a bump there. Should be able to handle the ball more. Really bad spot against Utah, but it's $6K. Price tag's pretty appealing. I have a little bit of interest in Colin Sexton. Just in this $5K range, I think Dejounte Murray is always a guy you can consider for tournaments, especially while LaMarcus Aldridge remains out. We know Dejounte Murray has the upside. Put up 34 Draftkings points in 30 minutes last game against Orlando. That was with Aldridge out. We already know that Aldridge is most likely not going to play today. He's listed as doubtful. So I expect Murray does get a little bit of a bump in his fantasy production. He does see a nice bump in his usage, I believe, his fantasy point per minute average as well. Sees a spike with Aldridge off the floor. Only concern you ever have with Dejounte Murray is the minutes. Some nights he plays 22 minutes. Some nights he plays 32 minutes. You just really never know. If you get him in a game where he plays 30, 32 minutes, he's most likely going to pay off a $5,500 salary. This could definitely be a spot where he does get the minutes. So I do like Dejounte Murray in the mid-range at $5,500. Mike Conley as well, really good matchup against Cleveland, $5,400. You could go there. Markelle Fultz I like quite a bit. Price tag's come down on him. Really good spot against Portland. Portland been one of the worst defensive teams this season. They ranked 27th in defensive rating. They also play at a pretty fast pace. They are 11th in pace this season. This is a pretty nice pace-up spot for the Magic. Portland's a really bad defensive team, like I said. So at 5,300, I think Fultz gives you 30, 35, maybe even 40-point upside in this matchup. So he's another guy you could go to in this mid-range. And then a lot of the value that we have today at point guard is just kind of dependent on injuries. You got DeLon Wright at 4,600, who I would like a lot. If Luka were to sit again, he would be viable. JJ Barea also you could play coming off the bench. He came off the bench last game or on Sunday, but still had a decent game. Actually, he really didn't. I thought last time I checked the box score in that game, Barea was having a pretty good game, but I guess he just didn't really get the minutes in the second half. So I guess kind of scratch that. Really, if I'm going to target someone from Dallas, if Luka were to sit, it'd probably be DeLon Wright. Wright played 32 minutes in the starting lineup, had 28 Draftkings points. Probably project him for similar numbers today if Luka were to sit again. So he's another guy you could consider at point guard. But I think that's probably it for this position in terms of value plays, at least what I'm seeing the night before. I saw Shaq Harrison was in the starting lineup a couple days, or last game. He started that game against the Knicks, but only played 13 minutes. That's kind of surprising. I would expect him to do a little bit better than that, but oh well. I guess we can't go to Harrison. I mean, even though he started, really didn't get the minutes, which is kind of weird. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to shooting guard now. I think we covered all the point guard options I see. So at this position, you got a guy like Zach LaVine, 8,700. Fine option today, but I don't think I really go to Zach LaVine on this slate. I think there's just other guys I'd rather play. I'd rather try and get up to McCollum if possible. I'd rather save and play guys like John Morant. I like the 10K guys more than LaVine. Even Mitchell for 800 less than LaVine, I probably would rather go to. I like that matchup a lot for Donovan Mitchell. Jimmy Butler, I like a lot here against Milwaukee. Milwaukee, we know, is a pretty good defensive team, but they do play at the fastest pace in the league. So this is a big-time pace-up spot for the Heat. We know Jimmy Butler in games like this, big-time games like this, he's going to play 34 to 36 minutes. Got 36 minutes against Brooklyn, 33 against Dallas. I mean, they're playing Jimmy Butler 34, 36 minutes a night right now. The fantasy production has been down a little bit, but getting a big-time pace-up spot like this against the Bucks should help with his overall fantasy production. They're going to need him out there to guard Giannis. I assume it defends Giannis here. So at 7,500, I do like Jimmy Butler quite a bit. DeMar DeRozan as well just is too cheap on DraftKings still. Last two games with Aldridge out, DeRozan's played 34 and 33 minutes, 51 and 35 DraftKings points. I know he was kind of disappointing on the last slate, only 35 DK points in 33 minutes. But when you take Aldridge off the floor this season, DeRozan does get a very big bump in usage. Sees a pretty big spike in his fantasy production as well. We'll run the numbers real quick just so you guys can see when you do take Aldridge off the floor. DeRozan's fantasy point per minute average jumps up to 1.27 fantasy points per minute. His usage rate is at 32%. The assist percentage is at near 28%. Just big spikes in his numbers overall. I do have a good amount of interest in DeRozan at 7,300. Between him and Jimmy Butler, I think it's really close. I'd probably side with DeMar DeRozan just because I like the bump in usage he's getting today, but really have no problems with either guys. I think both guys do stand out quite a bit in the mid-range at shooting guard. Even if Luka sits today, I don't know if I want to go to Tim Hardaway Jr. or Seth Curry. Both these guys are really expensive. Curry's 6,100. I know he did really good Sunday with Luka out, but I just don't know if I can pay a $6,100 salary or $6,100 price tag. That salary just seems a little bit too much for Seth Curry. Same with Tim Hardaway Jr. He had 31 DK points in 32 minutes on Sunday with Luka out. If I'm going to target some value from Dallas, if Luka were to sit, it'd probably be with a guy like DeLon Wright, who is $1,500 less than those two guys, and could potentially put up similar numbers to them. I'd just rather go to those guys, or that guy, I should say. But other shooting guard plays, Markelle Fultz, talked about him at 5,300. I like him quite a bit. Dylan Brooks as well in this fast-paced game against Atlanta. I have some interest in. After that rough stretch Dylan Brooks was kind of going through, he's really bounced back as of late. Last two games, 38 and 30 DraftKings points, 40 and 35 minutes. Gets a fantastic spot today against the Hawks. Fast-paced game. Brooks should have the opportunity to get up a ton of shots, which he's been doing as of late. Last three games, 26, 22, 24 field goal attempts. Just getting a lot of shot volume, and in a game like this where you expect the ball or this team to have so many more possessions than they normally do, 239 total, you expect massive amounts of points scored. Great spot for Dylan Brooks, sets up well for his just overall skill set. I have a ton of interest in him at 5,300. With Darius Garland out, I think that does help Kevin Porter a little bit. We might see Kevin Porter slide into the starting lineup. it's a tough matchup against the Jazz, but he's 4,900. He's still pretty cheap. So a little bit of interest there. DeAnthony Melton continues to start and play about mid-20s in minutes. Great matchup against the Hawks, 4,400. He's another guy you could maybe go to in the mid-range, or sort of value tier, I should say, as shooting guard. But I think that's it for this position, so let's go ahead and move on to small forward now. So at small forward today, looking at some of the plays I haven't already talked about, Chris Middleton's going to be an injury we need to watch. He has missed the last 2 games. He was actually listed as probable Sunday, but wound up being out. Didn't play, I think that was Friday night, and then they played on Sunday. He didn't play Sunday. We'll have to watch his status heading into Monday's game against the Heat. If he were to sit again, that would help a guy like Giannis. Eric Bledsoe would get a small bump as well. DiVincenzo would also get a boost. If Middleton plays, I'd rather just roster Butler and DeRozan over him. I just really don't have that much interest, or that much interest in Middleton. Like when Giannis is healthy, just Chris Middleton's not really a guy that I play. So other small forwards that we can maybe go to, Robert Covington been playing at a really high level as of late. 46 Draftkings points last game against Boston. Rebounding a ton, got 16 rebounds in that game. Obviously, he benefits with the Rockets running a lot of small ball lineups. That does allow Covington's rebounding numbers to go up. He played 39 minutes as well. Like, he's getting massive minutes. If this is a close game against the Knicks, which is a big if, but if it does stay close, I assume we get about 34, 35 minutes from Robert Covington. 6,200 is kind of an expensive price tag for a guy like him, but I mean, he's got double-double potential. He could easily go for 14 points, 12 rebounds, a couple blocks, maybe a steal or two. I mean, you could see Covington put up 35, 40 DK points again, so I don't mind him in the mid-range. He wouldn't be a core play for me today, but definitely a guy I'd have exposure to depending on how many lineups I was playing. Just going back to that Memphis-Atlanta game, guys like Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, I think are definitely in play today, especially with just how many points you expect to be scored in that game. In terms of value, though, right back to it, I mean, you got Kyle Anderson at 4,400, who I don't mind. His minutes have definitely been kind of up as of late. The fantasy production has been down, though. 16 and 15 Draftkings points the last 2 games, but the minutes have been consistent. He's played 33 and 31 minutes the last 2. With no Brandon Clark, with no Jaren Jackson Jr., while those 2 guys remain out, like Kyle Anderson should get the run, should get consistent minutes on a nightly basis. It's a fantastic matchup, so another guy you could look to at small forward. But I think my favorite value small forward is Rudy Gay. I really like him today at only 4,300 on DK. Last game with Jakob Poeltl getting hurt right like at the start of the game, which was very tilting. Poeltl got hurt like 3 or 4 minutes into the game. Rudy Gay was the first guy off the bench to replace Jakob Poeltl. Wound up playing 30 minutes in that game and put up 39 Draftkings points. You look at his numbers this season with LaMarcus Aldridge off the floor, he does see a pretty big spike in his numbers, averages over a fantasy point per minute, has a 23% usage rate, which is the pretty much the second, third highest on the team behind DeRozan and Chimze Methu. I mean, but these guys really don't even play minutes. So really, he has the second highest usage rate on the team behind DeMar DeRozan in terms of guys that actually get minutes. We know Jakob Poeltl's not going to be able to play today. LaMarcus Aldridge is doubtful. I think it's possible that we see Rudy Gay slide into the starting lineup. He did close out that game at power forward. We saw Trey Lyles close out at center. I think we could definitely see them roll with that same starting lineup today. That same lineup today, I should say. I don't know who starts for Jakob Poeltl. They could go back to Lonnie Walker, who started the other day when Aldridge's out. They could start Rudy Gay. They could start Drew Eubanks. I mean, we just don't really know here. This is I think it's an 8:30 game. Yeah, this is the last game on the slate, which really sucks. We're probably not going to have the news before lock, and a lot of our games on today's slate start from 7 to 7:30. Like 5 of the 7 games start at either 7 o'clock or 7:30, so I don't even know if we'll have available swaps. I guess if you do play Rudy Gay and he doesn't wind up starting, you could maybe swap off of him, but I'd still be fine with him even coming off the bench. I mean, he came off the bench last game and played 30 minutes. I think he gets probably like 26, 28 minutes if I had to guess, maybe more. If he were to start, I think there's potential for him to play 30 plus minutes. And given he's been a fantasy point per minute with Aldridge, or fantasy point per minute player with Aldridge off the floor, I like Rudy Gay a lot as a value option today. He's really cheap on Yahoo. He's only $11 over there. I have a good amount of interest in him over on Yahoo as well. Definitely one of my favorite early look values, at least as of now. Depending on what shakes out in Dallas with like Luka questionable, with Porzingis Porzingis maybe resting on a back-to-back. If both those guys were to sit, that's obviously going to open up a ton of value from Dallas. That would maybe make a guy like Rudy Gay a little bit less appealing. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see there. for now, I do like Rudy Gay as a value option. But if Lonnie Walker were to start, I mean, he's 3,100. He's a guy you could look to as well if he winds up in the starting lineup. But it's risky putting him in your lineup because then if he doesn't wind up starting, you really have nobody else to swap to, especially if we don't get word on their starting lineup till like 8 o'clock, 8:30, or later in the night. Like, you don't really have any other viable games to swap to because this game's the last game on the slate. I guess that's kind of the risk you take. If you want to put Walker in your lineup and just pray he starts, I could see doing it, but probably not something I would do today, especially if more value opens up. A guy like Lonnie Walker would just become less necessary. So let's go ahead and move on to power forward now. So at the top of this position, we do have Giannis, most expensive power forward and most expensive player overall on the slate. He's 11,400. I think Giannis is one of the best stud options on today's slate. Depending what value opens up as the day goes on Monday, it should be pretty easy to get to Giannis. I think there's already some decent value under 5K right now. There could maybe be even more open up if Luka were to sit, if Porzingis were to sit. Like, that would just open up even more value. I really like going to Giannis today. Just last few games with Chris Middleton out, like, he's been productive. Only played 27 minutes against OKC because it was a blowout, but still put up 58 DraftKings points. Played on Sunday against Charlotte when Middleton was out. He sat out Sunday as well. Played 35 minutes in that game, had 77 DraftKings points. Like, Giannis has massive upside here. Against the Heat, a team that's good defensively, you kind of worry a bit, but not really with a guy like Giannis. The dude is pretty much matchup proof. He dropped 71 DK points earlier this season on the Heat. Wouldn't be surprised to see Giannis put up another massive game today. So I think he's one of the best stud options today. Given the savings, I would maybe roster a guy like Trey Young or Luka over him if those guys were to play. But like, if Luka's out, if Porzingis is out, it's probably going to become a priority for me to get Giannis into my lineups, just with all the value that would open up. It would just make it much more easier to get to him. So I do like Giannis a ton today. I don't see him having troubles against Miami. Should just be able to have his way. The dude's pretty much matchup proof. He nearly averages like 2 fantasy points per minute. Getting Middleton out, if he were to sit again, like, that is a small bump for Giannis. Makes his numbers even better. So love him a ton. Then you got guys like John Collins, Sabonis, Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon I like quite a bit here against Portland. I love this matchup for him. He was really disappointing last game after like a stretch where he was just dominating, putting up 45, 54, 42, 53, 57, 56 DK points. Like, Aaron Gordon was just playing on another level. Then he really busted against San Antonio, only put up 24 DK points in 36 minutes. Expect a bounce-back performance from him here. This is a fantastic spot against Portland. Portland, we know, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They do play at a fast pace. They've been really bad defensively against power forwards this season. I believe they have allowed the most fantasy points to the position. You're most likely going to see a guy like Carmelo Anthony guarding Aaron Gordon a lot for this game, which, I mean, that's a matchup you love if you're rostering Aaron Gordon. So I do have a ton of interest in him at 8,300. I don't think he's too expensive. I think the matchup is so good that he's got plenty of upside here. Definitely a guy you could target in that mid-range. Julius Randle as well against a small Houston front court. You could definitely look to. He disappointed against Houston when they played a couple weeks ago. Only 38 DK points in 28 minutes. Expect him to play probably 34, 36 minutes if this is a close game, which it's kind of a big if, but luckily the game is being played in New York in Madison Square Garden, which should maybe make it stay a little bit, or should help keep it close, I should say. Right now this game does have a 9.5 point spread, so if it could stay close and Randle plays his full minutes, I think he's definitely in play. I probably would rather roster Aaron Gordon over him if I can find the salary, but you could definitely go to a guy like Randle. Other power forwards, though, just looking in this mid-range, I mean, not much stands out here. Tristan Thompson's out again. Larry Nance you can maybe go to at 5,200, but even with Thompson out last game, like, Nance only got 25 minutes. I was expecting him to play like 30, 32 minutes, and that just wasn't the case. He was on a stretch where he was playing really well, getting big minutes. The minutes are starting to trend down, which is always a negative. It's a tough spot against the Jazz as well, but the price tag did drop a lot on Larry Nance. He is down to 5,200, so still a fine option. Just don't consider him a core play today. Don't think he's going to be a guy I have in like a large majority of my lineups. But then under 5K for value options here. So Trey Lyles is a guy that I like a lot at 4,800. I think he's a really good value. Stands out as one of the early look values that I do like. Played 40 minutes last game against Orlando, and that was in regulation. Had 44 DraftKings points. He really benefited with Jakob Poeltl going down with an injury. Getting Lyles starting at center does help his fantasy production. We saw it help his numbers just overall. Had 20 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and 4 steals. We'll take a look at his numbers with Aldridge and Pirtle, both off the floor this season. I know with just Aldridge off, Lyles has been like a .8 fantasy point per minute player. When you take both Aldridge and Pirtle off, you get Trey Lyles at .83 fantasy points per minute. He does have I believe the third highest total rebound percentage on the team. Right there neck and neck with Rudy Gay. Both Drew Eubanks and Chimezie Metu both have higher total rebound percentages than Lyles, but third highest total rebound percentage on the team. Should get the start at center here. I'd be surprised if they start like Drew Eubanks. I think it's most likely going to be either Lonnie Walker or Rudy Gay who gets the start. We should see Lyles playing a lot of center minutes. This is a good matchup as well against a big Indiana front court. Like, you're going to need Trey Lyles out there for monster minutes against this big Indiana team. You can't go small against the Pacers. It's just not going to work. I think we're going to get 32, 34 minutes from Trey Lyles. At $4,800, that feels like an expensive price, but he's been a productive player when he does get the minutes, especially when you take Aldridge off the floor. I do like Trey Lyles quite a bit on Draftkings. I like him a lot on Yahoo as well. He's only $14. I think you can definitely play him and Rudy Gay together. I think both those guys, I don't think they negatively correlate at all, especially if they wind up starting. Like, if Rudy Gay winds up starting, I mean, obviously they're not going to negatively correlate if they're in the starting lineup alongside each other. These are guys that can play alongside each other. You could see the game close out with Rudy Gay at the 4 and Trey Lyles at the 5. So really like both those guys as values from the Pacers today. I think they do stand out as some good early look values under 5K. But then other options, if Porzingis were to rest on the back-to-back, you do have Maxi Kleber at $4,400, who would become a great value as well in a smash spot against the Bulls. Kyle Anderson against the Hawks, I like that matchup for him. If Luka or Porzingis were to sit, you got DFS for $4,300, another value play you could consider. But I think that's it for power forward value, so let's go ahead and hit on the center position real quick just before we end the video. So at the top of the center position, you got Hassan Whiteside, $9,600 on DraftKings against Orlando. Not the best matchup for Whiteside. This is sort of a tough spot against the Magic. Tough matchup against Nikola Vucevic, who can really stretch the floor, who can step out and shoot the three. Just doesn't set up well for Whiteside's skill set. But still, this is a guy that does have monster upside, can put up 50 DraftKings points on a nightly basis. For $9,600, though, I just don't know if I can pay that price tag for him. I'd probably rather roster CJ for cheaper. I'd try and get up to guys like Trae Young and Giannis over Whiteside. I think I'd rather save salary and play someone like Aaron Gordon. We're about to talk about some of these other center options you could look to, so don't really see myself going to Whiteside today. However, there are some very appealing options for a little bit cheaper. Now, I've talked about it throughout this video. This is the second end of a back-to-back for the Mavericks. We've seen just as of late, Porzingis has been resting on back-to-backs. We don't know yet if he's going to play. If he does wind up out, obviously don't play him. But if he plays, this is a smash spot for Porzingis at $8,600. I know he's expensive, but against the Bulls, like, we could see Porzingis put up another monster number. On Sunday, with Luka out against the Timberwolves, you had Porzingis go for 75 DraftKings points, played 37 minutes, had 38 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 blocks, and a steal, was just a monster game from him. If Luka were to sit and Porzingis plays, I think Porzingis becomes one of my favorite plays on the slate. This is just news we have to wait and see on. I can't really break down the Dallas side too much just because there's so many questionable guys. Like, if one of those two wind up sitting, it just really changes everything. If both wind up sitting, I mean, there's just going to be so much value. If they both play, I probably don't really want to go to either guy. I mean, Porzingis would be fine, Luka would be fine, but I don't feel like either guy would be priorities for me if they both play. It's just news we're going to have to wait and see on, so keep an eye on that. If Luka's out and Porzingis plays, love him in this spot against the Bulls. And then you have other guys like Andre Drummond, who I like quite a bit. With Tristan Thompson out last game, Drummond really benefited, finally saw his minutes come back up, played 36 minutes against the Pacers and had 60 DraftKings points. This feels like a spot where we should expect Drummond to get probably 34, 36 minutes again. They're going to need his size out there to defend Rudy Gobert. Drummond against the Jazz earlier this season did put up nearly 50 DK points against them in 36 minutes. 8K, I mean, that's a cheap price tag for Drummond if he's going to be playing 34, 36 minutes. I think Drummond is definitely underpriced. Even though it's not a good matchup, even though the Jazz are good defensively, Rudy Gobert is a good defender. Like, it's hard for me to not have interest in Drummond today if he's going to be back to 34, 36 minutes a night. That's a big question mark. We don't really know, but I think it's more likely he does play those minutes now that Tristan Thompson's out and you really have no other guy you can turn to. Like, maybe they could play Larry Nance at the 5, maybe they could play Kevin Love at the 5. But I think the most likely scenario is you're going to get probably 32, 34 minutes from both Love and Drummond, and then you're going to see, like, Larry Nance play probably 24, 26 minutes off the bench. In that case, I do have a lot of interest in Drummond, where he's still only 8K on DraftKings, very affordable. So I like him a lot in the mid-range. Joe Val as well, I think, is in a smash spot today against the Hawks. I love him in this game. I really think you can stack him up with John Morant, run it back with Trey Young. Like, I love that three-man game stack. There's obviously other guys you could get exposure to in this game, but those are definitely my three favorites, Morant, Valanciunas, and Trey Young. Joe Val should absolutely dominate against this Hawks team. The Hawks just are really going to have no answer for him. The Hawks have been one of the worst defensive teams this season. They've been one of the worst defensive teams against centers. Joe Val's very affordable as well in this matchup. I mean, he's only 6,800, which is a pretty cheap price tag for him, especially when you factor in that, I mean, he's back to playing consistent minutes, got 32, 31 minutes the last two games, been very productive as well with 49 and 51 DraftKings points. I think he's been rebounding a little bit more than you would expect him to. I mean, he's got 25 and 20 rebounds the last two games. I don't expect him to put up 20 rebounds a night, but don't be surprised if you get another maybe 20-point, 15-rebound game with a couple blocks, like another 40, 45-point game out of Joe Val. Has massive upside here. If he plays 30, 32 minutes, I think you could get a 45, 50-point game out of Joe Val, given how good the matchup is against the Hawks. So really like him on today's slate. I think he's one of my favorite options at center to go along with guys like Drummond, Porzingis if he plays. We're going to talk about some other centers that I like. Really a loaded position overall. There's just a lot of guys you could consider. But then to finish out the center position, just talking about some other guys. Mitchell Robinson, been playing at a very high level as of late. Been getting consistent minutes as well. Playing about upper 20s, low 30s in minutes every night. 30, 32, 29 minutes the last three games. This is a small Houston team. A Houston team that really has no size for a guy like Mitchell Robinson. We saw Robinson put up 36 DraftKings points in 26 minutes. Last time these teams played, just about a week ago. He finished that game with 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 5 blocks, 2 steals as well. I mean, kind of a little bit over his head. I mean, you don't expect him to get 7 stocks, but don't be surprised to see Mitchell Robinson put up another double-double, maybe get like 3 or 4 blocks. Could definitely do so against this small Houston team. A guy like PJ Tucker, I mean, he's a really good defender, but he's definitely undersized compared to guys like Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle. So I like Mitchell Robinson quite a bit at 5,500. I think we can definitely go to him in this mid-range. Never feels like a guy I have to prioritize, especially because the Knicks do have so many bigs. Like, they still have Taj Gibson, Randle, Bobby Portis. They just have so many guys they can look to. You would still expect Robinson to get at least probably 26, 28 minutes, maybe more if he's playing really well. So I do have interest in him, but in terms of value at this position, in terms of value at center, there's really no cheap plays that stand out here besides guys we've already talked about. Like, if Porzingis were to sit, Maxi Kleber for 4,400, a great value play. I guess if Drew Eubanks does start for the Spurs, we know Jakob Poeltl's out. We know that LaMarcus Aldridge is doubtful as well. You do have Drew Eubanks at a very, very nice price. I can't remember what his price is. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, yeah, so Eubanks is the stone minimum. He's 3K. Last game after Poeltl got hurt, he really didn't get that many minutes. Only played 16 minutes, just 13 DK points. He is a pretty productive player, though, when he gets the minutes. Can usually average about a fantasy point per minute. For what it's worth, he did pick up 4 fouls in those 16 minutes, so maybe that was one of the reasons he only played that few amount of minutes, was because he was a little bit of foul trouble. Don't be surprised to see Drew Eubanks get the start here. If that's the case, I'm going to really like him as a value at 3K. That would make me less interested in guys like Rudy Gay and Trey Lyles. I would still have exposure to them. I'm assuming Gay and Lyles start in the front court, but that would just have to be something we watch or keep an eye on. Definitely have some swaps ready in that late night game. You can maybe, like, if you have like DeRozan and Gay in your lineup, you can maybe pivot that from like drop down from Gay to Eubanks if you have him in your like your fourth spot, and then maybe you could upgrade from DeRozan. I don't really know who you could upgrade to. I guess you could maybe upgrade to like Domantas Sabonis if you wanted to. Like, that feels like about the same salary. Or like if you have Lyles in your lineup and Drew Eubanks winds up starting, you could drop down from Lyles to Eubanks and then upgrade from like maybe DeMar DeRozan to Domantas Sabonis. That's a 2v2 swap you could make. So just be ready to make some pivots depending on who starts for the Spurs. I'm assuming it's Rudy Gay or Lonnie Walker, one of those two, but you never know with Popovich. He could start Eubanks. He could start one of those two guys. Hell, he could start a guard alongside Murray. Like, we just don't really know here. So just keep an eye on that Spurs starting lineup. Keep an eye on the Dallas injury news as well, with Luka questionable. Porzingis could potentially rest. Those are really the two big injuries we have to watch heading into Monday's slate. But should be a pretty fun slate with all these injuries. I like a lot of these games. We got some high totals today. Should be a high-scoring slate, that's for sure. feels like one of those days where we're going to have a lot of value. I just feel like a lot of news is going to break as the day goes on Monday. So if you want to get access to some of my updated thoughts on the slate, I will have my article posted in the afternoon. I'll have updated core plays posted about an hour or two before lock. Those will be over on Patreon. If you do want to check out all the content I have to offer over on Patreon, you can check that out, link down below in the description. You can also give me a follow on Twitter, which is linked down below in the description, at DFS by Noah. I am very active over on Twitter, so if you do want to give me a follow there, I would greatly appreciate it. But thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you watching the video. Best of luck tonight. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button before we get out of here. And we'll be back tomorrow with another NBA video. Peace.